All right, moving on to item 251276, resolution granting permanent historic designation to the Second German Episcopal Church, part of the Brewers Hill National Register Historic District at 140 West Garfield Avenue in the 6th Aldermanic District.
Okay, this was held over last month so that the owner had more time to review the report, so I'm going to kind of rush through this as a broad overview.
Please.
Second German Episcopal Church, also known as Second Epworth Methodist Church, also known as Epworth Methodist Church. At 2nd and Garfield in the Brewers Hill neighborhood. Boundary for this is proposed as 1 foot east of the existing building so that the two houses on the same parcel are cut out if perhaps the owner files this. If this goes forward and the owner files a CSM, we are happy to amend the file before ZND. So this was a congregation built in 1862, starting on King Drive, moved here to get away from the expanding and noisy business district, hired local neighborhood architect Herman Paul Schnetsky and neighborhood builders the Reason Brothers. Church opened in 1888 with bilingual services and was one of the early broadcasters of sermons on the radio in Milwaukee. 1928, they merged with Epworth from 4th and Center. 1939, they hired Hugo Heuser for a renovation, a typical white congregation at the time. However, by the 1950s, they realized they needed to adapt to the changing neighborhood and welcome the new African-American community that was settling in. While it took them, while according to more recent research, it took them some time to live up to this promise from 1955, they did get there. Unlike some of their neighboring churches, they refused to leave. Across the street was Garfield Avenue Baptist, which built new in 1950 and bailed to the suburbs in 1963. Epworth hosted multiple civil rights speakers, black arts organizations for plays and art shows, urban league meetings for neighborhood improvement programs, planning space for the MPS boycott of 1965, and founding member of Northcott Neighborhood House and their official religious home. Herman Paul Schnetsky was born in Germany in 1850. Multiple famous churches throughout the city, mostly German congregations. The main church on KK, a house in Concordia, the Blatz headquarters buildings, the Germania building. Typical Gothic revival style. Remodeled by Hugo Heuser, who is most famous, who did several churches, but is most famous for the Wadham's Pagoda while he was working for Eschweiler. Heuser was well respected for his detailed drawings, and this is one of the few drawings that survives in city permit records of what he did at this building. While there does appear to have been some exterior work, I've only been able to find interior drawings. The staff is recommending designation based on criteria F1. It's exemplification of development of cultural, economic, social, or historic heritage of the city as a response to suburbanization, white flight, African-American settlement, civil rights involvement, and support of the MPS boycott. Embodiment of a distinguishing characteristics of an architectural type. Rare example of high Victorian Gothic. We don't have too many of these churches displaying the polychromy, and it shows some subtle Germanic design influence. Number 6, its identification as the work of artist, architect, or craftsman, master builder whose individual works have influenced the development of the city. Schnetsky is obvious, Blatz Brewery, St. John's Lutheran on Vliet, F. Meyer Boot and Shoe on Pleasant, Greenfield School, which is now the West Dallas Historical Society, and the Germania Building. Hugo Heuser, responsible for over 300 churches across the nation, at least 30 in Wisconsin and 8 known in the city, several early state fair buildings, and numerous homes throughout the city. And 9, it's essentially its character as a neighborhood landmark. Church is a contributing property to the existing Brewers Hill National Register District and occupies a prominent corner. Historic Brewers Hill Association considers the building important to their neighborhood identity as one of the few surviving historic churches in their neighborhood, is one of the largest buildings in the National Register District, and is a prominent example and good example of well-executed work with Cream City brick. So staff is recommending designation under criteria for fulfilling criteria 1, 5, 6, and 9.
Okay. Okay, this item requires us to open for a public hearing, so I'll hear a motion for that.
So moved.
Hear a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, opening a public hearing?
Aye.
With that, I guess we'll start inviting people up to give testimony on this item. Just as a reminder, last month we heard this item, held it over to this month due to, I believe, the owner objected because just he didn't have enough time to review the information. So now we've had a month pass. Hopefully everybody's taken time that cares to review this file, and we'll hear commentary. Specifically, we on this commission are specifically interested in commentary as it relates to the items F1, F5, F6, and F9 in the report. So with that, we'll invite people to come up and say their piece. And when you come up, please say just your name and your address. All right.
I don't want to speak on behalf of the owner, so I was hoping he would come first. Ryan, are you going to come up here? Yeah. Okay. I need you to speak first. I can't. I can't make this motion, so.
Ryan Patty, one of the property owners. So since the last meeting, I've been in ongoing conversations with Historic Preservation Alliance. I've made some efforts to reach out to the Brewers Hill Association to discuss some alternatives to designate it as a local historic designation unsuccessfully. Like I said before, the process was triggered by a third-party unauthorized raise order, and we believe there's other ways to protect the building from being raised, which was the initial concerns, rather than imposing a local historic designation. That's going to, I know it's not part of the 4 points he brought up there, but it would significantly increase repair costs and maintenance costs, ultimately, making the building unaffordable for local businesses that we generally are, trying to attract.
And
Yeah. Request would be just to give us a little bit more time. We're working together trying to figure out alternatives. So we'd request to have more time to work together and try to find another resolution to this rather than getting historic designation.
so, because I'm not the owner, I cannot request that, but at this time.
Tell me your name.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Marud. I am the Executive Director of Milwaukee Preservation Alliance, 1100 South 5th Street. And so due to that, at this time, MPA, we agree with the request just to hold the nomination decision for one more month. As community liaisons, we really believe that for the communication among the stakeholders in this is very important. I think Mr. Petit, the Brewers Hill Neighborhood Association, St. Marcus, and truly any others need the opportunity to sit down and talk to each other before, and it could be very useful before a final determination is made on this register, because I think all the parties involved need to understand the implications of what local designation means, the process of certificate of appropriateness, which I'm not sure everyone understands, and just the implications for the owner, for the association, et cetera. So we would just, we're not saying no. Of course, we would never say no. We are a preservation organization at our heart, and we respect the staff and the work that they're doing and agree with them that this building is very historic. We're just asking for a little bit more time to discuss it.
Mr. Chair, at our public hearings, Is it appropriate to ask questions, or do we like
Yeah,
to
we
just?
can- I think
Is
we
that
have-
not?
Sure.
All right.
We have before, yeah.
Rather than having you come back up in this kind of manner. I'm curious because this is presented so many times these years now that I've been on this commission that it's just going to cost too much money to be able to do proper maintenance on a building. Given that we don't have any authority on the inside, you can do whatever you want on the inside of any of our buildings on a local register, that it's really very much about the exterior envelope and its role in community affairs and what we all think of this as a treasurable kind of object for the community. So given that, and that these kind of churches, because one of ours is identification number 9, right? A unique location. It's just really, you don't have to be Methodist, whatever. It's a very important building in these kind of neighborhoods. Okay, so that I hope is clear with you. But can you guys tell me what is your big worry about the exterior, basically, of the building that would be too expensive to do?
Sure. So, I mean, the exterior of the building, if you look at some of the most recent shots, it's been stripped of many of its original things that were on there. The stained glass is gone. The doors have been altered. It was altered from the first architect to the second architect. So it's a shell of, you know, what it was when it was originally built. So, you know, our main concern is, for example, it used to have stained glass in the windows. Well, if we need to swap the windows out that are in there now, or we may have to go back to what they had then, which are, you're talking $300,000+ worth of windows, where if that is not required, you know, it's probably $100,000 worth of windows. There's many other things along the line, metal, and there's a bunch of them, but, you know, mainly it's windows.
That's what I suspect. Things like brick and tuck point and so forth, you have to do this anyways.
Yes, that
things
stuff
like
you'll have to do anyways.
fixing roofs and that has to be done anyway. Perhaps a big concern would be stained glass, but you understand that's what a commission is for, to look at these things, to evaluate them in a couple of years from now, to say, are there any alternatives to that, okay? And that you have a pretty good body of knowledgeable people here who are not in the business of trying to bankrupt owners, but in the business of lending advice and support for other things in Milwaukee and parts of the country, quite frankly. We have that perspective, okay? Stained glass windows were just redone at St. Stanislaus on the south side. You know St. Stanislaus, okay? So you have to kind of, there are options. There are different types of French construction, you know, of decorative windows and so on. But that's the value of being locally designated, is that you can have a discussion about these items that are expensive. Oftentimes roofing, slate roofs on churches are very expensive, but there are alternatives, and that's what a commission offers, is kind of that sort of advice and that professional understanding, you know, of what can be done. None of us want to bankrupt any of the owners of old buildings. So I just want to say that, and I think if you're going to come back in a month and still have a position that you object to this, it's going to be important not to just be in the abstract that it costs too much money.
100%,
You got to kind of make a case here.
We've got to
that,
address the 5 points that were brought
right,
up.
that I understand it's going to be 100,000, but it could be 300,000. That just is not a good thing for us to make a decision. So when you do come back, give us the specifics, understanding that you can do whatever you want on the inside of the building. Okay, it's just the exterior envelope.
Yes.
Thank you.
With that, sorry, go ahead.
And I would like to understand, what are the two of you able to discuss to move this agenda item along? Because it clearly, according to staff, in terms of all the research that they've done, fits the criteria. So I'm a little bit confused as to what you, as a non-for-profit, who its core mission is preservation. How can you help this gentleman?
So for us, it was a conversation of, thank you to Chairman Jaros for basically doing my job for me. That was a huge help. Explaining the implications of the commission, what it would mean, what local designation would look like, what those cost, what the navigation of, you know, certificates of appropriateness would look like, and just understanding the process. I know sometimes ownership received these local designations wholly unprepared. I know we went through the holidays and things went very quickly, and I think that was, and I also think there was some tension between ownership and the neighborhood association that we as an organization were hoping to resolve, to have everyone kind of sit at the table and say, okay, this is why the community is so invested in this. So as ownership, you understand why it's important to them. They understand why you feel the way you do. So kind of acting as that liaison. So that is our position. Our position, first and foremost, is always preservation. But our second position is getting the community involved and making sure everyone understands the process and the implications of that process.
What I'm hearing, though, is the financial concerns or other concerns that you as an owner, are questioning. So I appreciate the education and the negotiation and the trying to. It's sort of like a yes or a no. There isn't much. Most of it's around education, and so I don't know if you're open to that. Since really, it seems like, and we've seen this in other cases, that the concern financially of how this property can move forward with you as an owner, that seems to be the crux of it. How does that get remedied with education?
It won't. The education won't remedy it. I think it's more just trying to, like I said, this all started with, an unauthorized demo permit. What we were hoping to resolve from this is offer a deed restriction, a memorandum of understanding, something that will not allow the building to ever be demoed. That's what we were trying to have done in this matter.
Okay, but that's been stopped, and that's been explained as to how
Correct.
that weirdness occurred.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now we're into designation. And I'm concerned that another month, knowing that both of you have positions, I'm not sure, and again, 4 more weeks, big deal. But I want you to recognize, come before us again in 4 weeks. And again, to me, it's the financial piece. And rightfully, I totally get it, just as Matt was saying. But I don't know how that gets worked out through education.
If I may, my concern is we have the good people from the neighborhood also coming out for this meeting and then meeting prior, and it requires them to leave work early and take time from their families and stuff like that. And last month we had a special meeting just to essentially put it on hold, and we did give everybody, a lot of time which is something we don't even typically do, right? So we gave everybody a lot of time as a courtesy and in the spirit of reasonableness and good faith to take time to review the contents of the report. The historicity is not going to change in 30 days. What will change is maybe less and less people come out from the Brewers Hill Neighborhood Association the more and more we put this months and months down the road. The financial aspect's not going to change. Now, there have been investors or developers that have come to us for designation, to desire designation, because there's actually incentives, right, to restore the property in a historically sensitive fashion. I'm wondering, have you looked into those?
Tax credits.
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
We've had people coming to us asking for buildings that were built in the 1980s to be designated because they want these tax credits, and we love it. But okay, does anybody else on the commission have any questions for the owner? Do you have any more comments at all?
I do not.
Okay.
Would I be able to speak on the matter?
Of course.
Sure can. Come on. Hello, my name's Kristen Lobbs. I reside at 1832 North Palmer Street, and I'm the president of the Historic Brewers Hill Association, and I'm here joined by 3 other of our board members today. I just, for sake of time, I just want to speak very briefly on some of the points that you guys have just raised. Regarding any future proposed proponents, I just want to add some clarity here that, all parties were notified on November 19th of the original hearing date. We did meet with Mr. Pattee, the association did, on November 20th to talk about his plans prior to that initial December hearing. We also met with one of the prospective buyers in December, so we have been very open and willing to communicate with both parties involved. And that December 16th hearing, as we know, was already held to allow additional time for Mr. Pattee to review that staff report that was provided on December 12th. So now here we are in January. And just to quote Alderman Bauman from the previous meeting, he said that we're here today to determine whether the structure meets any of the criteria for historic designation, period. We will not consider balancing of interests, costs, uncertainties, potential interference with future use. That discussion takes place at the council. The sole issue today is whether this building satisfies any of the criteria set forth in the ordinance. So I just kind of wanted to reiterate that stance and stand by our statement that we made at the last hearing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
it is possible for the commission to amend the guidelines. I don't think we would have the power to require the installation of stained glass windows anyway. So if the commission would care to insert a line about that into the guidelines, they can certainly direct that to occur in the designation motion.
I'm sorry, is this, I mean, you're assuming that is the sole issue, financial issue. Is it?
He's not incorrect.
He's not incorrect. That it's the hang-up is the stained glass windows.
Yes.
Tim, do we have precedent with stained glass? And I mean, surely we do.
It's very ambiguous language.
I mean, otherwise you'd be
Temple,
having
yeah,
things with
but
the
that was not
designation.
ultimately the church use.
I wouldn't say I'd be happy with it, but I would
Okay.
accept it.
Okay.
Typically, we don't have the power to force people to put things back.
Yes, right.
We can make, if they are touching it, we can make them do better or move in that direction. And we certainly wouldn't accept vinyl windows or anything. But the most this church has in any location right now is a couple panes of colored glass, not stained in any way, no painting, no decorative, just single pane, single color. And that, while it is a nice touch, I don't think we even need to require that.
We've
Because-
accepted other things in place
Yes.
of what used to be stained glass in historic buildings in the past.
If it was gone at the time of designation, and this is already gone, we haven't even found a picture of what it looked like other than two small windows behind the altar.
Right. Okay. Okay.
We actually did find them. I can share them with you.
No,
You found the stained glass?
We found some old photos of them. We actually originally had reached out to MyAd to work with some of their students to maybe try to put it on like a hard plastic substrate to kind of replicate it on the inside. So yeah, I can share those with you.
Cool.
So I think you just would be a great owner of a historic property.
I've got a lot of old buildings. That's what I do. So I mean, I've been through the process with Tim on Mitchell Street, and a lot of the language is really ambiguous and it can be interpreted in multiple ways. So, I mean, if there's something that's stating you do not have to do this, I think that's a good resolution.
Well, let's go with it then. I mean, isn't that what we were looking for?
Well,
I mean,
I mean, I don't know that we need to have any kind of amendment to it, right?
I'd
I mean,
like it though. The language is very, I'd like strict.
I don't want
was
to
gonna say,
further
if I-
confuse the matter. The idea is you have a commission, we have a number of precedents where we have worked with owners to, in some cases, put an additional pane of clear glass in front of, because that's very delicate, and those frames and the lead and so forth deteriorates quickly. There are techniques then that come in, and perhaps not being forced with kind of the heavy responsibility of taking it all out and putting it in just the way it was or might have been back then. Plus, we also are fortunate in Milwaukee to have one of the best in the country, Conrad Schmidt. You know Conrad Schmidt Studios. And they have done this stuff for many decades, and they understand the implications of that and perhaps techniques in the spirit of saving the building of a congregation that doesn't have a whole lot of cash, but saving it, and in some ways doing something that eventually in decades from now, when a benevolent donor comes along and says, I want a couple $1 million, St. Stanislaus, then you get your windows in. But do no damage. That's part of the idea here. And this is all part of the conversation that you can have, at this level. I mean, I don't know that we can or should assure you, I don't know, with some sort of a kind of legal confidence that you can do whatever you want. No,
I'm not
that's
looking
just
for
not.
do whatever
That's
you want,
just
maybe
not.
just a specific item that says it doesn't have to go back to stained glass. Because there's 8 to 10 different people who can have different interpretations of what that means
Yeah.
when we do come back. And that's,
Can we, Tim, put that in there?
You have the power to change any word or add anything you want in
I mean,
this document.
This is so consistent that it's the stained glass window thing.
But remember now, when we make these decisions like this isn't the only church in Milwaukee. There are other churches. We're going to see other churches. They're going to come before us. They're going to look at some sort of, light
As a
restriction
precedent.
with them and say, well, how can you make up? And it could be a wonderfully wealthy congregation saying, we don't want to spend money on stained glass. We got to be very careful with building types like this that are repeated around the city.
Well, I go back to staff. You're the
I'm-
one that
I'm
came up
not-
with the idea, Tim. How?
I am not attempting to suggest that we forbid stained glass going back in. I'm just saying that there isn't any right now, and I don't believe we would have the power to require it, and at the cost of, and as Mr. Petit is quite correct about the cost of stained glass, and if we were about to require it, I don't see a scenario in which the Common Council didn't overturn such a requirement.
See, there'd be a revolution here in the.
It's a different situation
They'd
than
haul us out by
if
the
there
scruff of
were
our necks.
stained glass still present in any of the windows.
Well, yeah.
Are there other, this is a public hearing. so
Yes,
Are there
yes.
others?
I will invite others. Thank you. Unless you guys have further comments, no, okay. We'll invite others to make comments on this matter. Thank you. And just as a reminder, please state your name and your address, if you don't mind, and speak into the microphone so we can hear.
I won't be publicly stating my address, as I've already been threatened by one of the attendees today. But my name is Rachel Markin.
Tim Baldwin, 2023 North 2nd Street.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to thank you guys again for meeting with us again and taking your time to hear from us once more about our position on this. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm joined, as Kristen said, by our fellow HBHA board members, Kristen Labs, Tim Baldwin, and Evan Lindberg. Our association, as we have stated, strongly supports the local historic designation for 140 West Garfield Avenue. The action is critical to prevent the irreversible loss of a neighborhood landmark. As you guys know, landmarks can have an emotional significance to a lot of people. First, the 1987 Early Gothic Revival Church is an architecturally significant building in Brewers Hill that you guys have already noted within your own report, and it contributes to the historic streetscape throughout the distinctive massing and detailing. Second, its 138-year-old history reflects the development of the community it has been serving, and it is a vital piece of the historic religious corridor within our community. We are here now because action is urgently needed, and we cannot postpone it any longer. It's been postponed enough. A raised permit order was previously filed, and though it has subsequently been withdrawn, the limited protections currently in place have already failed to prevent, as you guys have stated, irreversible damage, including the loss of the building's original stained glass. And without designation, we risk further alteration and even demolition. I would also like to mention that the deed that Patty Group had mentioned, putting it into the deed, writing it in, that it would be protected and not raised, would require further investment of our time as an association, and we'd also have to pursue it in a legal format to make it enforceable. So we're using the tools within our nature as a nonprofit association to come to you and to respectfully ask you to give this local historic designation, which is part of your committee's responsibilities. We also do not appreciate being contacted by a lawyer who served as a volunteer capacity for the MPA, asking us to withdraw our application, who was not acting within his capacity as a lawyer at the time, but still sending it from his professional email. And we do not appreciate the insinuation that we have been combative. Instead, we would like to reiterate our position that we have been in open conversation with Ryan Patty since he originally approached us after purchasing this building. We invited him to a community meeting where he could hear from the neighbors, from the people themselves, the residents themselves, to find out what they wanted in this space. We tried to continue dialogue with him over 2 years where he was unreachable and unresponsive. So for him to come in front of you today and say he would like to continue open dialogue, unfortunately, his actions has not proven that to be true from our end. That's my statement. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a question. The attorney, represented who?
I'm not aware of who or if he represented anyone. He did contact us from his law firm's email address and asked us to remove our application as a volunteer at the MPA.
Am I allowed to come back up?
Sure.
Do I need to say my name again? Okay. Emma Rudd, Milwaukee Preservation Alliance. If I may, that was our board treasurer, Claude Krofchek. He works for a law firm. That is his only email, so I apologize if it appeared as though you're being contacted by an attorney. That is just Claude. That is the only email he used. It was not meant to be combative. It was not meant to be as though you're being approached by the law at all. That is not who we are as an organization.
He doesn't have an association email?
He
with
does
the
not.
MPA?
He does not. We are a fledgling organization. We have 2 email addresses. And so I apologize. We will look into that. That is a very good point, and I'm glad you've pointed it out to me.
Thank you.
And I apologize. I was unaware. I think our organization was unaware that all of these conversations had taken place. I apologize for addressing this in front of the commission, but I wish that was something that would have been communicated with us. I think it would have helped MPA understand a little better the background and the situation before we came forward today and asked for another sustainer, because that is something that we were not aware that these community conversations were going on. We thought this was something that happened very quickly. And so I apologize on behalf of the organization. We were not aware.
Do you withdraw your support for that position then? I don't understand.
We'll keep comments directed to the commission. Sorry,
I was
just to
going to
prevent
say,
it
to the
from.
commission, we do support the designation. We never not supported the designation.
Okay. Thank you.
Make that
Thank you
very
for that
clear. We
clarification.
never not supported the designation.
Yes, thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Basically, just up here to kind of support Rachel
Okay.
in her statement and the president's statement. I made the original application for the local designation, and I reside within local historic district boundaries of Brewers Hill, so I'm familiar with all of the requirements of COA, and
Right.
there are some parts of my house that are not historically appropriate at the moment, and historic preservation is not going to make me redo my siding, just because it's not. Yeah, because it's aluminum, so to speak. So I know they're not going to come after the church to replace their windows. If you are replacing windows, may have suggestions. So, yeah.
All right. Tim, look into his siding. No, I'm just kidding.
And the
I'm
last
just
thing,
joking.
the last thing I would like to add to my statement on the record is that every postponement does incur different costs to each individual.
Yes.
I'm sitting here right now with an expired time on my parking meter, and I may in fact incur a parking ticket just to come up here and testify. I'm an unpaid volunteer for our association, and I'm here representing the residents and their interest in this historic preservation. We are the historic Brewers Hill Neighborhood Association, and we take that seriously, even though it is at our own cost. So I would like you to take that into consideration if you decide to postpone again today. I appreciate it.
So what you're describing, it hasn't come up before in terms of 2 years you've been working. I mean, it's quite different than,
Yes, ma'am.
it's,
We tried to keep that out of this because we felt this was a pretty cut and dry designation. Unfortunately, with the back and forth that they've been doing off the record, I felt it was important to include that context.
Yeah, okay.
what do you think going to happen, would happen to the building? Just out of curiosity.
What happened to the building?
If it wouldn't become historic?
My hope
you
is
think
that there would be a
apartments would be
functional
going in
use
there,
that
or-
goes into that building that has an appreciation for the beauty and the history. What we've seen successfully in other neighborhoods of our size, of our demographic, is breweries, entertainment venues, and those were things that Mr. Patty and his organization were looking at pursuing when we initiated this conversation with him about potential development opportunities over 2 years ago when he purchased it in 2023.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Thank you. Do you guys have any other comments? No?
No, we just appreciate your time
Okay.
and taking this seriously.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely.
Sorry I look like this. I just came from pickleball.
No, that's okay. You look fine. All right. Anybody else that wants to give testimony on this matter?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Well then, I guess, is there any additional conversation that wants to happen between commissioners now on this matter?
So I'll put a motion out there. Move to basically adopt a resolution granting historic designation for the reasons stated in the staff report.
Okay. So we are, Alderman Bauman has moved to adopt the designation for reasons F1, F5, F6, and F9 as stated in the report. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries, then it is designated as historic.